Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us for this webinar, which will focus on the critical situation we're all facing, which is, of course, the coronavirus global pandemic. To say the least, society, the economy, and this industry have been brought to a standstill by this unprecedented event, with people afraid for both their lives and their livelihoods due to the vast network of people, businesses, and families in the promo marketplace that it supports. With me today is my co-host, Tina Beres-Filipski, PPAI's Director of Publications and Editor, and our two panelists, both of whom are at the helm of the industry's largest membership groups, ASI's President and CEO, Tim Andrews, and PPAI's President and CEO, Paul Bellantone. Welcome, and thank you all for joining Tina and I.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle. You're so welcome. You're welcome. Tina's going to start us off, and if anyone has any questions for Tim and Paul, you can send them to Tina and I through this webinar platform. We will be taking those live as they come in, so we will not be waiting until the end. If you send them to us and we will see them, we will certainly ask and field those questions to Tim and Paul. So with that, Tina, if you would get us started off.
Thank you, Michelle. Let's start with this question. What do you see as the roles for PPAI and ASI during this crisis? Paul, would you like to take that one first?
I will. Thanks, Tina. Boy, just a few short months ago, that was such a simple and obvious question and answer. And I would say to provide critical products and services that companies need to do their business. Very obvious. Also, to make sure that we're making sound businesses to be certain that there's a viable and vibrant association when we get through this. That has changed so significantly from 2 months ago when this was a health crisis in China that was affecting supply chain. And today it's a global pandemic that we've basically put our country into a medically induced coma to try to navigate our way through while we triage this patient. But I think fundamentally, for PPAI, it's what can we do today and what processes and procedures and planning should we put in place to make sure that we're viable in the future.
Tim, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that for ASI, our role and our goal is to make sure that when this is all over, and it will be at some point, that the industry has come through it as well as can be expected. I mean, this is unlike anything anyone's ever seen. So really, it's to really help the industry travel through this journey and come out as strong as possible. And I think that there are 4 key roles that we're playing or really endeavoring to play, and it's really 4 big pieces. One is informational. So, as this crisis started to unfold, we deployed our editorial team to really understand what was going on, explain it to people in the States and really around the world, and deliver those sort of breaking developments, upheavals, stories of what's happening, temporary closures, all what's happening, the supply chain disruption that started in China. So that's where the informational part, and that continues, of course. And then secondly, I think it's providing insight. So beyond sort of those news highlights of the day, what are the financial resources that are available to people at the federal and state level to help our distributors and suppliers survive during this incredibly difficult time? What can we do to report on the stimulus package, break it down for people so they can understand it in bite-sized pieces, and then also, provide some inspiration, from an educational perspective, helping people, have additional education about how to manage your business through a downturn in a really significant situation like this, how to apply for resources to help yourself. We're actually giving some free fitness classes during the day to help people stretch and sort of keep their mind and body, focused. And then also reporting out from an inspiration perspective, a lot of success stories. Suppliers that have geared up really quickly to make products they've never made before, suppliers that are making, products like masks that are helpful, some suppliers that are, importing products and sourcing products that they've never offered before that are needed for healthcare workers and others. So, and then finally, I think fourth piece is just someone to talk to. We deploy all of our employees to work from home, and they're all doing that very successfully. So sometimes the distributor supplier just needs to be able to pick up the phone and call somebody that they trust and respect and ask advice. So I think that's really what we're trying to do right now.
Great, thank you. Michelle again. So truly, I believe that CEOs and leaders learn from other CEOs and leaders. So I'd like to ask each of you, what are you doing in your organizations to kind of focus your resources? What are the smartest strategies that you're using right now? Tim?
So I think the first thing we did was move our employees as quickly as we saw this coming to work at home. And luckily we had about a third of our organization that was familiar with how to do that. The other 2/3 unfortunately weren't. So we were able to really deploy that really quickly and really focus people on delivering services to the distributors, suppliers we serve every day, and not having any disruption in that. And that's been quite important. So making sure that our customer service people are there, technical support, et cetera. And I would say that's my advice for people in the industry right now. Make sure that your people are able to do their jobs and that they're able to communicate to your customers and your prospects, and that's what we're trying to do. The other piece of that is, luckily our technology platform, ESP, that's used by so many people in the industry, is in the cloud, and so we're able to continue to manage that platform and not find or not have any issues, and continue to upgrade that platform. So I think that's the other really important thing is, deploying resources to make sure that we don't have any issues that are going to impact the customers that we serve every single day. And so that's how we sort of deployed our resources during this crisis.
Paul?
So, Michelle, I appreciate that question because it's been, personally, professionally, I think my focus has been on how do I become a better leader through this crisis. If if we were going through a regular recession, there's a lot written about the blocking and tackling and how do you weather a storm, how do you weather through that type of environment. This is like nothing we've ever seen, and I don't know, frankly, that if I had to make the decisions that I made last week again, that they would look the same. So what I've done is focused our attention on the directors and the staff, those that are closest to our members, and really asking them, what do we need, what critical processes and responses can we be doing? And they have to be actionable. They need to be important. We don't want to just add to the white noise that's out there in the information clutter. So for instance, when I challenged our team on that, they came back and said, okay, two of the biggest obstacles to our members taking advantage of things are time and money. So we offered up the education for free. We know that people probably have more time than they want right now. We've offered up certification for free. That was another obstacle that we had. We've opened up our awards programs for people to put submissions in for free, but it's less about what we think. It's been a lot more about what are our members telling us that we can do to be helpful right now. Second part of that is just making sure that we're making the changes within the association so that we are viable when we come through this, and we will come through this. Almost a little bit of backcasting. What does the future of us look like? And what are the decisions we should be making on a daily basis that'll help us get there?
This pandemic has caused a lot of disruption. What criteria are each of you using to evaluate whether or not to hold planned events? Paul?
Well, Tina, I know you've been part of that process as part of the management team. I think our members, and I know our volunteers, the board, they want this list of what are the 3 or 4 things you're going to use to make these decisions so that we can all watch the news together at night and decide whether or not we're going to have an event. And I wish it was that easy. So we've put together an actual 30, 60, 90-day plan for every one of our events. There are 5 or 6 things that obviously will cancel an event: mandatory federal, state, local guidelines. The facility has been turned into a hospital, travel restrictions, inability for staff. Then there's a list of about 20 softer things that any one of them wouldn't be a compelling reason, but in some combination, and that's, you have speaker cancellations or the likelihood of success or the financial implications. So it's been a little bit more art than science. I will say that we've made a decision that we're ready to announce right now. We will not be holding Expo East. We were in that deliberation stage of the 20 softer things that we were considering. And then we got notice that the Atlantic City Convention Center has been turned into a hospital. And it's likely that it will continue in that format through most of the summer. So that's one of those decisions that were made for us, and we'll be reaching out to attendees and exhibitors probably immediately following this call to let them know that. But it's more art than science, and something that's taken with a lot of care and concern.
Great.
Tim,
I
can you
want to
answer
get to
that?
Perfect.
Tim, you want to answer that question?
Sure, we're looking at our events in the same fashion. You know, we've already postponed a number of our hosted buyer events and our road shows, and we're going to be announcing new dates in the second half of the year. You know, the most important thing, of course, is the safety of everyone who's involved, both employees and members of ASI. And so we knew that we needed to move those certainly to the second half of the year. And, you know, our major event in the summer is ASI Chicago. And right now, McCormick is being used also as a medical facility, at least that's the anticipation. And so we're still monitoring that situation really closely. We would love to have that as, you know, a show that we all rally in July and come out as an industry and as citizens. Whether we're able to do that or not, we don't know. This is the most fluid situation any of us have ever managed through in terms of especially events, because it's also not clear what exactly is going to be possible in terms of large groups for the next few months. It may go beyond, you know, even 2020. So I think that's going to be a very important aspect of what we do. You know, we're all going to be looking to things like sporting events and other kinds of big events to see how are people managing those, and most importantly, what makes attendees and exhibitors comfortable to actually show up. And when they're there, you know, what kind of things do you have to put in place so that people continue to be healthy and comfortable. So there's going to be a lot of transition. I think the event space is going to be forever changed from this, just as we, you know, changed in 9/11 how we fly and how we travel. So this is a very fluid situation, and we're just doing the best we can, just as Paul said, to make sure everyone's healthy and that we're doing the best thing for the industry.
That's great. Thank you. We are getting a ton of questions, so I'm going to take two of those right now before we launch into the topic of the stimulus package, which I know everybody is interested in. The first question that came in for both of you is, what is the most effective and non-invasive way to stand in front of your customers throughout this ordeal? Tim?
I think that, you know, this is pretty difficult. I think you need to be in touch with your customers, but you also need to realize that they're going through all the things that we're all going through. So I certainly wouldn't ignore your customers. I would reach out to them in whatever way you have established as best to communicate with them. For some people, that's going to be through a personal email. That's going to be through a phone call. It's going to be through a text. We're using a lot of video now, as I'm sure many other people are, and I think video is going to be changing the world. You know, I think you've got to be very respectful of the fact, though, that they may be dealing with a medical issue. They're certainly dealing with a business issue, because everyone in the United States is dealing with a business issue. I would say, you know, play it soft, play it with empathy, and don't press things too hard. I think people are very fragile right now, and they want to have a personal connection, but they certainly don't want necessarily a hard sell.
Gotcha. Paul?
Sorry, Michelle, I was on mute. I would agree with what Tim is saying. Do it with empathy, do it with respect. I think it's like most of the other marketing that we've seen over time, nothing really replaces anything else. Everything is additive. So I believe it is appropriate to reach out to your customers and ask them how they want to be responded to. You know, it's interesting how much we don't know about our customers in times like this. We don't know how to reach them or mail them something at this point. And I think reaching out to customers and say, hey, I have an idea for you and I'd like to send it to you. Where can I send it? That's a very non-evasive way of letting people know that you want to add value and you want to be in communication. They'll let you know how they want to be contacted and communicated with. But I would do it with an extra level of sensitivity right now, because we don't know what shoes they're walking in.
Gotcha. I have a request from a distributor to make this announcement. Can you please encourage suppliers to email distributors COVID-19 related promo items? They welcome all ideas. So clearly distributors are hungry for ideas, especially as it relates to that topic. And one other question that came in from a listener for both of you. I've sent an email to some of my customers that I'm donating 10% of sales from now until the end of May to local food banks here in North Texas to help feed their families during this difficult time. Do you think it's a good idea to promote that as goodwill? I'm sensing there that there's hesitation because maybe they're afraid it's going to come off as opportunistic. So I'm curious for both of you, what do you think about that? Paul?
Well, I would say to be authentic to your company. If you were a company that your customers never saw you as being, you've never shown them your philanthropic side, or you've never shown them the charitable work that you're doing, it may be viewed that way. But if you're a company, if that's authentically what your company has done and your customers have seen you that way, then I don't think it would be out of the ordinary for you to do that without hesitation. So I think no matter what we do, in the next weeks and months, do it with authenticity in a way that your company would be doing it anyway. Make this an extension of yourself.
Great. Tim?
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I think we have to be very careful because there's going to be people that are going to try to take advantage of the situation or overly promote themselves in ways that are really inappropriate. And I think we all have to be very careful about that because we don't want to be viewed in ways that are inappropriate. At ASI, we do a lot of charitable things, and in fact, we've shut our cafeteria down, of course, and we're donating the food that was left over there that we knew was going to spoil to local food banks. And, will we promote that? I'm not sure how we'll do that. We certainly will internally because our employees want to know what we're doing. But I think, I'd be very careful to use that in a commercial message right now. So I think we have to be, as Paul said, really authentic and just very careful. I think back to the customer's question, I think, depending on what your situation is, Zoom has been a great thing that lots of us have used. One might, have a cocktail party of your marketing customers and just get people together just to sort of, share ideas and what they're working on. I think right now people want to have connectivity to people and they don't want to feel isolated. So I think from a client perspective, whatever you can do to bring your clients together would be really helpful as well. So I just want to go back for a second.
Gotcha. I'm going to ask you guys to dive headfirst into the stimulus plan right now. So in light of the government's plan and what's being offered to small businesses, what do you both envision as being the most helpful to companies in our industry, which of course the majority are small businesses by definition? Tim?
So there's a number of programs. The first thing we probably should say on this is that we're not financial or accounting or other kinds of banking advisors. So this is a very quick-moving situation. There's lots of different analysis out there, and we're providing some, and I know the PPAI as well is doing that. I mean, the CARES Act has a couple of great things, though, that I would mention up front. First of all, you can apply for loans. So if you have fewer than 500 employees, and the definition of employees is a little vague right now, but if you have 500 employees or fewer, and that really covers a lot of our members, obviously across the distributor and the supplier landscape, you can apply for loans to pay your payroll and other kinds of expenses related to people to keep them employed. The whole point of that program is to keep people employed, and that goes through June 30th. And you can have part of those loans forgiven depending on how your employment levels stay. So that's really important. And then there's a lot of other small business emergency grants and loans available to cover different things. And also don't forget your state and local governments. They have a lot going on as well. And the final thing I would mention is that also unemployment is really been beefed up. People can get not only the usual state unemployment, but also an additional $600 payment on a weekly basis from the federal government. So as you're looking at your employment levels, I know there's a lot of distributors and suppliers that have made really difficult decisions over the last few days to furlough employees or lay people off temporarily or permanently. And the good news, if there's any good news in that, is that employees are now walking into an unemployment situation where there's much better benefits than there typically are to help them stay stable during this period. So those are some highlights. And Paul, want to take some more?
Yeah, Tim, you're right. It's broken down into three major areas. The first two of them are administered by the SBA. You have the long-term low-interest loans up to $2 million. you have immediate $10,000 grants almost upon applying for them, that is also forgivable. And I think both of our organizations have done a really good job of breaking down that 800-page bill into what's important to our industry. You have the paycheck protection programs, which are intended to help people keep their workforces together. And that does include independent contractors and self-employed and sole proprietors. And then there's the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, I think it's called, which has really broadened the scope of traditional unemployment and who would be eligible for it, and then added extra benefits to it, like the extra $600 a week. I am not an expert on this. I think both of our teams have experts that have broken down these bills, and I would just go to both of our most recent newsletters where I think I've done a pretty good job of breaking this down for the industry and what matters most to us now.
Paul, a question came in, and
I think that
I'm sorry.
I think that independent contractor piece, which is in available for in unemployment, which is I think maybe the first time independent contractors and gig workers have ever been covered by unemployment. That's a very important piece for our industry because so many people are independent contractors. So if you're an independent contractor, or if you have them working with you and for you, that's a really important piece to dig into, because that's going to be very beneficial financially to help people have a paycheck for the next few weeks and really for several months as we're all getting back on our feet after this is all over. Sorry, Michelle.
No, that's great. It's actually the subject of the question that came in. The person wrote that his independent contractors are an important part of his team and he can't afford to lose them. So I'm glad that you guys addressed that in the bill. Thank you.
Good.
Tina?
Yes, so all of our members are looking for some direction right now. What are the 3 to 5 things you'd recommend promo businesses do right now to fortify their companies, particularly the smaller companies that comprise the majority of our industry? Tim, let me start with you.
Sure. I think the most important piece right now is I heard from Craig Jack Nadell. He said, remember the airline safety speech, put your oxygen mask on first. So, I think that it's really important to make sure that your company survives. If you do lots of other things and your company doesn't survive through this, then all those things didn't, probably will not have mattered in the long term. So, trim your expenses, cut waste, freeze hiring, look at staffing levels, consider furloughing employees or reducing hours until this is all over and you can bring it back. Because again, there's a really good unemployment payment plan in place so that they will be able to really have access to money they typically wouldn't have had access to. Hold on to your cash as long as you can. Pay your bills, because we don't want to have everything freeze up and no one's getting paid. That's not a good way. But call people to negotiate, terms and conditions. Silence is not good in a situation like that. You've got to be, transparent and communicating with your employees, but also with people that you owe money to. So, call your landlord, call, people that you need to pay money to, work out a payment plan, be proactive. I think that's really important. The other piece of advice I would give is that, this is a time to reinvent ourselves and our businesses. Nothing's going to be the same after this, just as it wasn't the same after 9/11 or the 08 recession. So really start thinking about what your business is going to look like when we all get back to whatever the new normal is going to be.
Okay, thank you. Paul, your thoughts?
Yeah, I echo everything that Tim said. A lot of this comes down to the basic blocking and tackling of running a good business. I think we may have all become a little bit complacent. We've had the longest run of economic prosperity in the history of ever, as long as they've been going back and tracking that. And I think that maybe we've gotten a little bit complacent on some of those basic business processes, and whether that's making sure you're staffed accordingly and doing the right things and efficient as possible. That's number one. I would pay very close attention to the legislative relief that has been put into the marketplace. I've never seen anything like this throughout my business career, where there's been such advantages to legislation that we can tap into and help our businesses. The third one, I would say it's what Tim talked about, reimagining your business. I've been doing so much reading and trying to find good analogies for what's happening right now. And there was this plague productivity. And if you actually Google it, it's, you know, people who've been productive in quarantine. And you just find out these great thinkers who've done their best work, whether it's Shakespeare or Isaac Newton, and the things that they discovered in this downtime where they started working on things instead of working in things. And I know that's an overused statement, but this is an opportunity to work on your business, reimagine what you would like it to look like, and then put processes in place to help you get there.
Okay, thank you. Let me answer one of the, or take.
Tina, I just want to jump backward just a quick second.
Go ahead.
I think one thing we also have to remember is to stay positive, you know, for ourselves and for, you know, the people that look to us for advice and counsel, you know, whether it's our customers or the people that work for us or with us. You know, I think we need to control what we can control, which is our attitude and our actions. And I think it's going to be very easy for all of us to sort of get caught up in, woe is me, woe is us. I mean, listen, we're facing a difficult situation. People's sales are off 50, 60, 70, 80, 90%. That's very difficult, but we've got to stay as positive as possible. And I think, you know, we have to, you know, Paul referred earlier to leadership. I think we've got to be real leaders through this because I think we're in a great industry. We provide great return on investment for marketing dollars spent. We know that it's factual. And I think we're going to be well positioned. We just got to keep our wits about us and stay focused.
Okay, thank you. Let me take one of the questions from a listener. Do you anticipate lower attendance for events, not necessarily because of the fear from a health perspective, but because distributors are uncomfortable or not able to afford it this year? What's your take on that?
I think that it's going to be tough. I think that, you know, the good news in some of these events is that we're moving them from the first half of the year to the second half of the year. And for us, some of those are hosted buyer events. So the suppliers, you know, have already committed their marketing dollars to those and are not withdrawing those. And so distributors will be able to attend those basically at no cost if they qualify. I think for the larger events, you know, there's the health issues, as you said, but then also when we saw this after 08, you know, certainly we're going to have to be looking for lower hotel costs, et cetera. So we're going to have to all be mindful of the fact that people are in a different economic situation for the next few months. I mean, one does not recover from 2 or 3 months of you know, nil sales, you know, without taking a while to climb out of a pretty deep hole. So we're going to have to all be mindful of that for sure. Yes.
Paul, anything to add?
So Tina, I'm sorry, I heard part of Tim's answer, but I didn't catch your whole question. Can you just give me the short version of your question?
Yeah, somebody was asking that the lower attendance at events this year is not just because from a health perspective, but because of lack of funds, not being able to afford to attend events this year. Is that what you're kind of hearing out there?
Well, we've both run events, both ASI and PPAI. Our attendance at Expo has been strong. We haven't had any events since then. I'll go to what Tim was talking about, is we should anticipate lower attendance on events. I think driving attendance events will probably be stronger. Regional events will probably be stronger than the national events, because I think people will be hesitant to be in large crowds, be on airplanes for 2 or 3 or 4 hours. We don't know how long that will last. I think we need to adjust our events accordingly. I had somebody ask me about, you know, do we need the PPAI Expo in a post-coronavirus world and events industry? I think we need a PPAI Expo. What that's going to look like in the future will probably be very different. I think it's an opportunity to reinvent that event and all events as well. There's certainly going to be more hand sanitizers and more spacing between people. But does that mean that we change the hours so that traffic flows a difference? Does that mean we either lengthen the days or shorten the days for us to accommodate people who want to meet in a different way? I think this is a real opportunity for us to look at our events and look at how people attend and why people attend, and really find ways to make them more valuable going forward. I know that that's what our team is focused on right now.
All right. Michelle, do you have a question?
I do. So I had my set question, and then other questions have come in that I'm gonna tack on to the end of this. What I was going to ask you both, I find it fascinating again because of both
Hello?
of your roles in the company. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay. Because of both of your roles in the company, you talk to people all the time. What are you hearing in the industry? And I would say that some of the things that have kind of percolated up are, are suppliers finding new opportunities by creating PPE supplies, and is that necessarily a good thing? Because some of them may not be, authentic and up to snuff. The other part of that is hand sanitizer, which, some distributors have said they feel like they're getting price gouged. I don't know if they know the legal definition of price gouging because that term gets thrown around a lot. But someone sent in a question about, have you guys heard that hand sanitizer is being confiscated, their orders are being confiscated by the government? So all sorts of things that people are wondering what you guys are hearing in the industry. So all of that kind of stuff, if we could roll it in together, and what are you hearing from people?
Wow, you packed
Tim?
a lot into that, Michelle. You packed a lot into that. I would say, let's take the price gouging question as the first thing. So I think people often get confused on what the definition of that really is, right? So price gouging is when there's an earthquake in California and suddenly gasoline is $30 a gallon. It isn't the price of something went from 45 cents to 55 cents because the cost of goods went up because of things that occurred in terms of plastic bottles or how much the alcohol costs to put into the sanitizer. So I think we have to be careful about throwing that kind of word around. There may have been, cases here and there where that's been the case, but I have not really seen that with industry suppliers. I think they've been very professional and acted in very professional ways. There certainly have been some cases where the FBI and others have gotten involved and have arrested people that were doing things that were inappropriate on pricing, but I don't think it's been related really to our industry. So that's one piece. What am I hearing generally? I think, there's some obvious industries that are performing fine right now. Healthcare obviously is a hot area, et cetera. But we're also seeing a lot of people that are focusing on that work-at-home person. And I checked ESP to see what is going on in terms of searches, and there's a lot of searches that are up pretty dramatically on a percentage basis. They're still small overall, but puzzles, paints, video equipment, and accessories for video equipment, hand lotion. So I think there's a lot of obvious things going on out there. So I think I handled part of your question. You may want to repeat the part that I didn't handle so that my patriot here, Paul, can answer them.
I'm actually going to ask that you repeat the whole question. For some reason, my audio is and the sound is going in and out. So if you can repeat it, it would be helpful, Michelle.
Of course I will. My question was, you two are in such a unique position that you're talking to people all day, every day. You're hearing from everybody. I'm curious what you're hearing in the marketplace, insofar as not only people's pain points, which I'm sure are very similar, but also opportunities in, related to markets. And then part two of that is people's concerns about suppliers who have pivoted to PPE items that, may be great in some cases because they're doing a fantastic job and have the wherewithal to do it. And, the concerns that maybe they're not up to snuff as far as medical codes. So really, Paul, the long and the short of it is, what are you hearing in the industry? What types of things are people concerned about / opportunities?
Yeah, well, we are an opportunistic industry. So the fact that we're moving into PPE, I think is great. Maybe we're actually helping product get to market that might not have gotten to market otherwise. I think that almost every business that I come in contact with is somebody found a niche that they wanted to move into. I think you have to do it with an element of sensitivity to the fact that some people will be looking at you as capitalizing on something. But I think in the long run, that dissipates if you do it. Don't be what you claim that you are. If you're selling medical equipment, make sure it's actually medical equipment and it's not something else, and don't portray it to be something else. I heard a little bit about the question about price gouging. I have not heard a lot of that. As a matter of fact, what I've been hearing on social media and talking to people is that there's actually a level of kindness that's been, a level of empathy among colleagues that I think is has actually been very positive and very, very reinforcing. And in terms of where I'm seeing the business, so I ask people, I try to ask the same questions every week, and one of them is, you know, where is the industry down right now? And I can remember 2 weeks ago it was 40 to 60, and then it was 50 to 70%. And Tim mentioned the number 90% before, and I've heard that a few times over the last few days. That's pretty concerning. And then the other question I asked with regard to recovery of the industry and economic recovery in general, will it be a U-shaped curve, a V-shaped curve, or an L-shaped curve? And the answer I'm getting is something more to a W-shaped curve that will probably have dips and then recoveries, and then dips again and recoveries. So I guess I don't know if you asked for this, but my counsel on this would be to be prepared for a longer haul than we might otherwise be comfortable with.
Okay.
Michelle,
Thank
I
you.
would like to add. Michelle, I'd like to add one thing about the protective equipment. You know, I've seen a lot of emails and a lot of different social media about products that are from, you know, being imported directly from China. Somebody, I think that was one of the questions. Somebody, you know, that's been imported directly from China that are being sourced through suppliers they don't know. My advice would be this to distributors: do not buy product from people you do not know. We've got a lot of suppliers in our industry that can provide those kinds of products that are very important at this moment in time. And many trusted suppliers have pivoted and are importing those products or manufacturing those products domestically. You know, I would be more than ever before, I would be incredibly careful about buying product from people that are not in the industry, not dedicated to the industry, people you don't know, or people that cannot be known. We certainly do not want to have a situation where somebody in the promotional product space is selling product that they think they've imported from somebody that contacted them through email or something. And you know, this is not a baseball cap, folks. This is life threatening. And so just be very careful about where you're buying products.
Amen.
Great. Thank you both. Tina?
All right. You've both been in the industry for many years and have seen the promo market weather economic and societal catastrophes like the dot-com bubble, 9/11, the global recession of 2008-9. What do you think the industry will look like when we finally emerge from this? Paul?
So two things. First, I think it's really difficult to compare this to any of those other scenarios because there are so many unknowns in this one, where even with 9/11, it was an incident, a tragic incident that we then adjusted to, but we knew it happened, we knew it stopped, and we were willing to make sacrifices based on that. This one's a little bit different because we don't know what the end game looks like. On the positive side of that is that, one, we know that promotional products work, and eventually companies will want to get the most bang for their marketing dollars when they start spending it again. And we know that promotional products have withstood recessions and depressions and 2 world wars and anything that's been thrown in our industry, we have conquered and we have grown. From an industry standpoint, I think that the supplier distributor channel will be more valuable now than it may have been just 2 or 3 months ago, because I believe that there's a real opportunity for promotional consultants, for distributors to solve problems in ways that their customers, one, aren't inclined to do, and two, don't have the resources to do. So whether it's how do you reach customers that you used to reach at your annual meeting, well, I think that we have the ability to solve those things. And I think having a healthy supply chain on the supplier side, those suppliers aren't going to be in a position to dig that deep into a customer's business. I think our supply chain gets reinforced in this, and the fact that promotional products work is really the foundation for that. If you're just procuring product, this might not be the crisis for you. But if you're willing to really put in the time and the creativity and count on good partners, we can come out ahead on this. in some ways.
Tim, what do you think?
So I think we're going to be potentially pretty different in a few ways as we come out of this. First of all, there's going to be some companies that just don't make it, both distributors and suppliers. On the supplier side, it isn't necessarily the biggest or the ones that will survive, and I'm not saying that I'm hoping this to happen, but I do think that we've got some companies, both distributors and suppliers, that are leveraged of all sizes. And I think leverage is not a good thing when you come into an economic storm like this, because it's way beyond, as Paul said, economics. This is something we've never seen before. We've never been worried about our health and our business and our 401k and our family and friends all at one time. So I think that we're going to see some things happen there. I would expect consolidation on the supplier side. Quite frankly, I think there'll be more consolidation than there has been, and there's already been a significant amount. The top 40 suppliers represent something like 28% of industry sales. I think that's going to tick up a couple percentage points probably. On the distributor side, we've been saying for years that the smaller distributors are going to have a harder time in the future. I don't know that that's the case now. I would say that I'm sort of reversing that a bit. The smaller distributors are like lots of businesses, including ASI, or family-owned businesses. They're 1 or 2 or 3 person operations, and they have some maybe independent contractors. They can hunker down for a couple of months and cut their costs. They don't have big overhead from office space that's too big. And so I think that the smaller distributors, are certainly going to have a tough time, but I think that they are serving local markets, and as those local markets start getting back to normal, that normalcy may occur in local markets where you're serving the barbershop and the restaurant and the local school system and the local hospital and et cetera, et cetera. I think those smaller distributors that have great relationship with their clients when the world comes back to life, I think they may come out of this, really great. I worry a little bit more about, highly leveraged, companies. But I think we'll come out of this great. As Paul said, it's going to be different, but I think we'll survive. But there's going to be changes for sure in the makeup of the industry and who's on top. But that's like in any industry. And if you go back to 1950 and look at the Fortune 500, something like 85% of those businesses don't exist today. I think what we've seen an acceleration of adoption of technology through the last 3 weeks. I think we're going to see acceleration of change in the industry over the next couple of months as well.
Thank you both. Let me ask a follow-up question from one of our listeners. Is the coronavirus the straw that broke the camel's back? Will we see the factories that supply our products moving significantly from China? Where might they be heading? India? Please advise.
So,
Comment on that one?
Tina, I would say that it's just going to accelerate processes that have already been put in place. We started talking about this a little bit. Well, it's over the last couple of years when China, as it's become more expensive to do business in China, some people were already looking outside of China to other low-cost producing countries. Then we talked a little bit about that again in January and in February when this first erupted. I think it will accelerate the process to other countries and maybe back here to the United States. I don't know that it's something that's happening because of the virus. I just think there's going to be an acceleration of that migration because of it.
All right, thank you. Tim?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that really this started, if it seems like 100 years ago, but this really started maybe a year and a half ago with tariffs. And before that, it was labor costs going up in China, and people started looking around for alternative sources, and they were sort of casually doing it in some ways. And then the tariff really moved suppliers to look outside of China for supplies in Vietnam and Cambodia, and maybe in Africa in certain places, and India, et cetera. So I agree. I think this is going to accelerate that. I think that in some ways our supply chain has not been that healthy because it's been so dependent on China. And I think that really has not been, frankly, looking back in the rearview mirror, has not been that great. And I think that this move that began with the tariffs to look for alternatives is going to be very helpful. I think we'll probably be in a situation, 2 or 3 years out where maybe 60% of product is coming from China and 40% is not coming from China. I think that would be a much healthier balance, and I don't think it's going to move much beyond that. In terms of the U.S., I think there'll be some manufacturing come back to the U.S. perhaps, but I don't think more than a percentage point or two. At the end of the day, the United States is no longer really a manufacturing location that's cost effective for the kinds of products that we mostly are producing in this industry. So, other than the decoration that the suppliers do so great, I don't see much more manufacturing. Certainly, we have great manufacturers in the United States, and I love them all. But I don't think that that's going to tilt up much beyond where we are now, maybe a couple percentage points.
All right. Michelle?
I'm going to take a question from a listener first. To both of you, do you think any PR to larger businesses of end buyers done by ASI and PPAI could be beneficial through this? Curious on both of your thoughts. Tim?
I think both of us, we do a lot of PR to the industry, to buyers and large companies. We have a lot of information that distributors can certainly use on asicentral.com about the cost per impression and the return on investment that marketers get. I think it's very typical to have a very effective, broad-based campaign. You could spend millions of dollars. I mean, look at how much is spent to change people's opinions about any topic that you can imagine. Big organizations, institutions, corporations, you can spend tens of millions of dollars and not really change people's perceptions. I think this is something that the 20,000 distributor firms really do great at, and their staff, really, in a day-by-day explaining this to people. I'm certainly not opposed to doing something that people could come up with something that would make sense. And certainly we do a lot of PR at our shows, and we bring in, TV stations and do all sorts of video, TV remotes, et cetera, on the news shows about promotional products. But, PR is very difficult. It always looks pretty simple, but you can end up spending a lot of money and not really get much bang for your buck. I think we're much better off arming as we do, and I know PPA does, arming distributors to be able to explain the return on investment clearly to the people they're talking to. So I think, frankly, that's our best bet.
Great. Paul?
So our mandate has always been to grow and protect the industry, and at different times we've put more weight on one of those than the other. I think we're in a protect right now. We're hunkering down. We're trying to find out what we can do to help our own businesses and members survive. We've intentionally punted our promotional products work week from May till October, where we think a message around the value of promotional products to marketers will be better received, more well received. And I also think it's a time for us, hopefully by October, we'll have some things to celebrate about our industry and about how we've made it through. So the answer is yes. We never have enough dollars to do that. I think at this time we have to be careful about the sensitivity of promoting one marketplace or one media when so many people are out of work and so many people are struggling to keep their businesses together. But certainly we're in protect mode right now. We will go into grow mode when we feel it's appropriate and there's an audience that's willing to listen to that.
Great. The question I was going to ask you both.
Paul, I think you're right about the timing. I love that timing because we're going to have some great stories because there's clearly a lot of suppliers and distributors in this industry that are helping, protect, healthcare workers and people who are on the front line. So I think you're right that we're going to have some great stories to tell how, our suppliers pivoted, how they, created 10 or 20 or 40 or 50,000 masks every week, how they really helped, how the distributor marketplace really, turned and tried to serve those markets really well. So I love that idea.
Great. What I would ask both of you, again, both of you long tenured in the industry, so to speak, what would your advice be for things not to do? So you don't want people right now who are in pure survival mode, allocating their resources in the wrong places, mired down in noise. What advice would you give to business owners right now to stay laser focused on saving their businesses? So again, cautionary tale, don't get involved in XYZ, focus on these things. What should they avoid? Paul?
Well, the first thing I would avoid, Michelle, is keep saying how long tenured we are. I'm starting to take that a little bit personally. Well, for me, it's fundamentals again, and I'm going to quote somebody. You quoted Craig Nadell before. I'm going to quote Trevor Neeson. We had a conversation last week, and I asked him a question very similar to that. Like, what would you advise people not to do? And he said, pretend that when this thing is over, that business is going to be back to normal. Like you can just pick up where we left off. And I think if we do that, it's going to be a fool's errand. I don't think that we're going to be able to say, well, I'm going to put everything back in place just so I can flip the light switch and be back in business. The short answer, reevaluate everything about your business. Make sure you're doing the critical things really, really well. Don't step outside. Don't step too far outside your, your wheelhouse on certain things, and pay attention to your business fundamentals. Anything outside of that, you're probably, I would say you're probably kidding yourself about what you think you're going to be able to accomplish.
Great. Tim?
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say, the other couple of pieces I'd throw in there is don't get bogged down in social media and the news headlines every day. There's so much changing going on. There's so much that can distract us. We could spend 20 hours a day just looking at the competing news headlines about what's going on, or social media headlines. So, don't do that. Don't spend your time doing that. Figure out, as Paul said, what you have to do for your business today, and then act quickly and decisively. I think speed is very important in business always, and it's more important today in the crisis we're in right now than ever before. We can't change what's happened. We can't change what's happening. We have to concentrate on what we can change, and what we can change is, are we balancing our life and work? Are we trying to stay healthy? Are we making decisions and executing against those decisions? Are we keeping a good attitude? And are we making sure that people around us, are healthy and doing the right things as well? So we can't panic. We've got to act. But that old proverb, right? It's a marathon, not a sprint. That's what we've got here more than ever before. And I think we need to sort of look out beyond the sky a little bit and be thinking about, how do we get there? And it's just really fundamental stuff. But don't get bogged down in social media, stuff and other negative kinds of headlines. We can't change any of that. We have to be informed for sure, and we have to act for our business in an informed way. But don't spend 20 hours a day looking at, Facebook.
Gotcha. Great advice. Tina?
Yeah, I've got a follow-up question on that, sort of expand on your thoughts from a listener. How can we begin to prepare our medium for the return? This person says, I'm very focused on right now on the now because it's brutally apparent. But how should we begin to think about positioning our medium for the future when people will begin to repair their businesses and their lives? We know that what we do has a tremendous emotional impact on recipients. So what can we do to begin to think about how to prepare for a successful return?
So I'll jump in on that. Use research, use fact-based selling to your customers and consultation. What is it? The cobbler's children are wearing the old shoes or the worn shoes. We don't use promotional products enough in our own marketing of our companies and of our media. And two, we don't use enough research, compelling research that I know that both organizations have available to our customers and our members. So again, back to basics, know that our products work, but let's re-explain why. Let's reposition ourselves as more than procurement specialists. Those days are gone. Become creative, but use the information that's been available to us for decades to tell the story, the compelling story about promotional products.
Thank you, Paul. Tim?
Yeah, I think, when we come out of it, every business, represented on this call is looking for ways they're going to be able to recover and grow their business when this all is over. And there's not a single business in America that's not thinking the same thing. And so when we start emerging from this, every client you have, every prospect you had or have, are going to be trying to figure out, how do I get my customers back? How do I grow my business? How do I regain market share? How do I, grow my business today and into 2021 and beyond? And how do I, sort of dig myself out of whatever kind of financial hole I'm in, because there's going to be a lot of financial holes people are sitting in, especially in small and medium-sized businesses. So I think we have the best tools ever to help businesses do all those things. and you add to that retain employees and attract new employees, and all those things that we do from an incentive perspective and can be used for promotional products can be used for. So I think, you know, as Paul said, we've got to gird ourselves for that. So this is the time to educate yourself. You know, we've got an ASI educational portal. You know, PPA has an educational portal. Ours is open up for anybody that wants to use it. You know, get educated on these things. One of the saddest things to me at our trade shows is that a very small percentage, something like 15% of people that attend a trade show ever attend even one educational session. Well, if people have a little time right now on their, you know, during their business day or at night or whenever, you know, now is the time to really not only know those facts that Paul was referencing about return on investment and all the things that we know about why promotional products work so well, but we need to own those facts, and we need to have them on the tip of our tongue, and we need to weave them into every conversation and not just have them to be, you know, slide 19 on a 40, you know, slide PowerPoint. They've got to be something we live every day and believe. And so I think that's what people should be doing right now, because when this is over, and again, it will be over, but we'll be in a new world, every business is going to want to grow their business, retain customers, grow market share, keep employees, you know, attract new employees, and that's not going to change. So we've got to really dig in now, and now's the time to do it. We got time on our hands, some of us now, and now's the time to do that.
Thank you, Tim. Michelle, we have time for another question.
We do, actually. I want to just say real quick, there's some questions that we're not going to be able to get to because of time. We're being very mindful that everybody's busy, so we're being mindful of your time. The questions that we did not get to, Tina and I will make sure that they get to Tim and Paul, and who can certainly answer them, you know, whenever they get a chance to do so. And Tina, I guess the last question that we'd have time for is, do you see one there? Oh, here's an interesting one. People are having a hard time right now who are trying to order products, getting products to places that have been kind of locked down. Have you guys heard that, and any advice around that? So for example, if you're trying to deliver something into New York, that's not going to happen right now. So I guess it's just a message of, again, being creative and strategic in your thinking. Just curious of your thoughts there.
For me, I look at that, Michelle, as an opportunity to add value. So your customer probably doesn't know the things that you know about distribution of product and how to get things to certain places. How valuable are you to your customer if you're the one who's telling them, well, we can't get this here, but we might be able to get it someplace else, or is there another way that we can distribute this, maybe not in bulk, but to individual people? It's an opportunity to be a consultant around challenges that this crisis is presenting, and not just saying, well, we can't get the product there, so let's just forget it. Outside of the realities of what we're dealing with, you know, I think that this is an opportunity for us to be creative and really earn those margins that we've become accustomed to when we're working with our customers.
Great. Tim?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a tough time. The distributors need to really be on top of their orders to make sure that anything like that's in the works, you know, and in process is, as you said, not delivered to the wrong place or left, et cetera. So this is a tough time, but boy, distributors have got to be really on that and working with suppliers, and suppliers are going to be very flexible on this, you know, in terms of distributors getting back to them with, you know, alternative locations or whatever it is. So I think distributors and suppliers just have to work together really closely on that right now. And distributors are at the front line on those questions for sure.
Sure. I'm going to throw the last question to Tina, and then I'll do a quick wrap up. Tina?
All right. We got a good question, I think, to end on from one of our listeners. Paul and Tim, how has this pandemic touched your lives personally?
Oh boy, where do we start, Paul? You know, I think it's done a few things for me. It's taught me that we are, you know, humans are incredibly agile. You know, we went into this, most of us not maybe being as great at using video technologies or conference call technologies or whatever, even though some of us think we're pretty technical. You know, we are now having, you know, friends with cocktail party. I mean, we're doing a daily cocktail party with my friends on video. You know, I'm trying to avoid the risk of eating too many barbecue potato chips. You know, I think that it's made me understand, though, also how flexible my team is. You know, I've got a deeper sense of respect for my entire team and my entire company than probably I ever had before, and I always had them in high regard. because, you know, we are reacting quickly, we're moving quickly, we're trying to make quick decisions and do it in a very civil way. So, you know, I think the ability for humans to react like that is unbelievable, and it's a good reminder. And also coming together, you know, people are coming together, reaching out. I mean, I think this is for sure. Paul and I have been on a bunch of stages together. We've never held we've never hosted a joint town hall, and so you know, I think these are things we're learning, right? How to work together and how to move forward for the betterment of the industry and the betterment of humanity right now.
Thank you. Paul, your thoughts?
Well, on a professional level, it's changed everything I thought that leadership was supposed to be. And I always thought that it was a matter of certainty and saying things with confidence and you know, rallying the troops. I think I've become a little bit more familiar with servant leadership. I know I've gotten more notes of appreciation from my staff about me sharing my uncertainties, but vision of what I think should be, rather than saying this is where we're going. Tina, you know this. I have a sign in my office that says, if we have data, let's go with the data. If all we have is opinions, we're going with mine. And and that's no longer relevant. My opinion is just one of many that may not have the same influence that it did or that it should. On a personal level, it's really allowed me to weigh out what is important and what's not important. And oddly enough, I think I put my phone down more at night now than I did prior to this, because I realize how important it is for me to connect with my kids and my family and my friends and not solely focus on business. So it's been pretty impactful, and I don't know that I will do either of those things the same moving forward.
Thank you both very much. Michelle,
I'm not sure we're going to do anything. I'm not sure we're going to do anything the same in the future. I think the whole world's changed.
Agreed.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I want to thank Tina, for sure, my co-host, and our panelists, Tim Andrews and Paul Bellantone, for their forthright advice and honest insights. And on the slide you'll see now, you'll find contact information for both Tim and Paul, where to find both ASI's and PPAI's extensive coronavirus coverage. And again, we will be sending Tim and Paul, Tina and I will, the questions that were asked that we simply didn't have time to get to. So thank you very much for your time, and everybody be safe and well. Thank you.